UFC Jacksonville just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And let's start it off with the main event of the evening. Ilia Topuria versus Josh Emmett. It was one-way traffic for Ilia Topuria throughout the majority of the fights. Obviously, there was a couple moments for Josh Emmett, especially that fifth round early. He seemed to kind of hurt Topuria. But if you look at the performance overall, Ilia Topuria minimized risks with his boxing. He didn't overly bang with the Josh Emmett. He actually kind of worked a little bit of a shoulder roll in. His hands are incredible at this point, and the way he's so smooth with the jab, picking Josh Emmett apart, who likes to throw powerful hooks and was really winging hell shots. It's just he couldn't find consistent combinations on Ilia Topuria. Late in the fight, Topuria does the right thing, takes control in the grappling, lands some takedowns, finishes the fight in a dominant position. Everything I saw out of Ilia Topuria is something of a veteran fighter. At 26 years of age, his fight IQ, alongside of just his already shown abilities, is off the fucking charts. I feel like he's a legitimate title threat, and I am very intrigued by a matchup with him and Alexander Volkanovski. What's odd about the fight is just how young Topuria is to look this evolved. He beat Josh Emmett to a pulp. Majority, I would say probably 95% of the roster is finished with the punches that Ilia Topuria is landing. And Josh Emmett continues to move forward, continues to try and fight. His eye completely shut. He looked like a zombie out of The Walking Dead at the end of that fight. It was such a one-sided ass whooping. But what Josh Emmett showed is he's got some fucking stones. The man can take a beating, crazy pain tolerance, and resiliency up top. So got to give Josh Emmett a ton of respect, but he was just clearly outgunned by Topuria. I love the Topuria boxing. I love the head movement, the shoulder roll being mixed in. He works a great jab. He also is very dangerous on the ground, has tremendous control, and knows how to minimize risk there. He's one of the most well-rounded guys in the UFC right now, and he's only 26. So then begs the question, what is next for Ilia Topuria? I feel like the commentary seemed like they were pushing towards Topuria in a title fight, so I'll have to assume the UFC is also on board with that, assuming Volkanovski is able to get past the Yair Rodriguez. Topuria and Volk could be a fight, but I'll throw the monkey wrench in it all. Volkanovski definitely wants to face off with Islam Makhachev again. So is there a world where Ilia Topuria then has to fight one more fight before he's in the mix for a title shot? Does he fight a Max Holloway who's scheduled to fight against the Korean Zombie and have to get through him, which would be a huge risk as far as non-title risk? Like, Max Holloway is the #1 contender. Fact, he beat the interim champion Yair Rodriguez. He's lost 3 times to Volkanovski, sure, but definitely is a hard matchup even for the likes of Topuria. Would I be all arms for that fight? Yes, I want to see Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. But I don't know if that would be what I'd put next for Topuria. He's in one of those spots where it's all going to depend upon if the UFC goes the route of Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev 2. That's also assuming that Alexander Volkanovski beats Yair Rodriguez. What if Yair Rodriguez beats Alexander Volkanovski? Now Topuria is out waiting again. Now he's very young at 26. Could he potentially wait for the next title fight? Yes. Problem is there's a lot of hype on him now. If you wait a year and a half on the sidelines, MMA fans have crazy recency bias. So he might be forced into another fight. If I bring up the UFC rankings, and I hope this looks all right for you guys here. Yeah, I think it does. Let's specifically look at the UFC featherweight division. Let's make sure you guys can see it. All right. So featherweight division on the screen. You can see Volkanovski right in front of me. So we have Yair, the #1 contender, Max Holloway, #2, Ortega at 3, Arnold Allen at 4, Josh Emmett was 5. So I'll assume Topuria probably climbs to 5 after that performance, also stating that Emmett has a win over Cater. Then I'm thinking, all right, Arnold Allen and him, probably not the fight. A name I could see them throwing him is Brian Ortega. It would be a huge fight. I think still a marquee matchup. Spain versus Mexico. I kind of like that. And I feel like that's a fight that's very winnable for Ilia Topuria. But a huge risk. One of the toughest guys outside of a Max Holloway or a Yair or a Volkanovski to fight. but I'd be down with it. I think Topuria versus Brian Ortega is a possibility if the UFC has, Volkanovski making, his move up, or if Yair wins. If Volkanovski moves up, maybe they go interim belt, and then they go Max Holloway versus Topuria. So there's a couple ways to swing it, but I don't think the UFC's crazy about throwing Topuria to Holloway before he has the world title. I could see Topuria fighting Holloway if Topuria beat Volkanovski. For Josh Emmett, he sent back a bit, and I like the Giga Chikadze fight. It was a great main event. I loved every second of it. Co-main event, Maycee Barber beat Amanda Ribas up. She brought it to her early. The first round, though, Ribas looked solid. Second round, Barber started finding home to big shots, hurt Amanda Ribas, and then finished her up with some ground and pound. I saw some people in the chat complaining about a potential headbutt, but the punches were doing the real damage. Ribas was getting outworked, outstruck, out-hustled, and she lost the fight clearly. Maycee Barber right now is on a fucking roll. Beating Amanda Ribas like this is no joke, because Ribas lost a split to Katlyn Chookagian, and now you're going out there against Maycee Barber and getting beaten the fuck up. This is one of those fights where it moves the needle a lot for Maycee Barber, and I think maybe even she finds herself in a fight potentially with the likes of someone of a Katlyn Chookagian. I don't think they're going to throw her like a Jennifer Maia. We can look at the women's division real quick. Where are the rankings? We can see it right above me here. All right. Katlyn Suramara, but it's Katlyn Chookagian, last name shift. So Maycee Barber beats Ribas at 9. I think the Katlyn Chookagian fight is on the table. That's a possibility, man. Kind of think this might be it. Menafaro booked, Blanchfield Santos booked, Andrade outside of the women's flyweight division. Chookagian might be the one. Barber versus Chookagian at some point towards the end of the year, if Barber wants to do it again, I'd be down for. As far as Ribas, I think she has to sit down and decide. Do I want to fight at women's flyweight or women's straw? Because historically, I think flip-flopping weight classes is just not optimal for your record. You're going to lose fights because she's not fully committed to being a 125er. And then she's going to have harder weight cuts to 115. I think she has to decide, man. Sit down and decide. I feel like Ribas' position at 115, talking about being a perennial contender, is better than where it's at 125 pounds. So maybe consider dropping weight for Amanda Ribas. Nonetheless, Barber with a sick win. Austen Lane and Justin Tafa. There's not a lot to say besides the lock of the week. Justin Tafa didn't even get a chance to fight. Austen Lane and him start fighting. There was a decent body kick by Lane. He claws the eyes of Tafa out. Tafa also caught him with a hook. And the fight's over because Tafa's eye was like completely shut and destroyed. And now we beg the question, do we even rebook it? Because I feel like Austen Lane's ready to fight tomorrow. Justin Tafa's going to need 8 weeks off. I feel like the UFC is going to go a different direction with Austen Lane. I feel like he's going to be on standby if there's any heavyweight fights that have like a short notice needed replacement. So I feel like Austen Lane is not going to be fighting Justin Tafa next time. But I would still be interested in seeing the fight, and I truly believe Tafa was on his way to knocking him out. Before that, David Onama slept Gabriel Santos, and this is one of those fights where I'll tell you I see Gabriel Santos as a future very high-level featherweight. I see him in the top 15. Onama's also really good, and Onama beat him now. There was great transitions by Santos on the ground. He has tremendous kickboxing, but the dog of Onama comes through with the sick combination, drops Santos, knocking him out. David Onama's crazy explosive. He's tough as fuck. And I feel like he's prime right now. With his athleticism, he can close the distance and knock out plenty of strikers. Because Gabriel Santos is someone who I still see with a bright future. I know he lost 2 in a row and Onama slept him bad, but don't sleep on Santos. I mean, I still think he'll come back from this and is going to be a really good fighter. He's just only 26. And, not every 26-year-old is like Ilia Topuria, where they're in the top 5 at 26. David Onama with a great win. It was a sick knockout. Now training with, I believe, Mark Montoya, so a new camp for him, which I like to see. I feel like Onama, his athleticism can take him very far in the UFC featherweight division. Not talking about ranked opposition just yet. Keep him outside of the rankings. He's coming off the loss to Nate Landwehr. That division is so many fights. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see Onama fight Joe Anderson Brito. I don't know. I just feel like that would be a junkyard dog scrap, but might be little bit of a unlikely possibility. Sick win for Onama. Santos takes a fat L. Brendan Allen finally gets past the knockout artist. He strangles Bruno Silva, but he also dropped him and hurt him on the feet and showed that his striking has evolved. Brendan Allen is now a legitimate top 15 contender. If you doubted him before, we know for a fact now. He already beat Muniz, who's still ranked. Silva outside of the rankings, but one of the scarier guys outside of the rankings. Now, Brendan Allen calls towards the top of the weight class. Dricus du Plessis' name, Israel Adesanya's name. Those aren't the fights Brendan Allen's going to be getting, but I need to move him forward in the rankings for his next fight. So I look at the UFC middleweight division, and I look at his position, and let's make sure you guys can see this on screen. Yes, you can. We see Brendan Allen's name at 13. Kelvin Gastelum is dropping a weight class. Nasruddin Imavov just got a win over Chris Curtis. Unfortunately for Brendan Allen, I'm probably going to have to match him up with Nasruddin Imavov next. Scary fight, but it makes a lot of sense. I feel like him and Imavov's the way to go. Names like Hermanson and Dolidze also intrigue me. The Dolidze fight specifically, I'd kind of like to see that matchup. So if they really want to jump him forward, Dolidze. But I feel like Imavov's a real possibility. I'll go Dolidze or Imavov as the next fight. Obviously, he's not going to fight Sean Strickland. He does have a loss to Chris Curtis, who's at 15. I doubt they book a rematch. And Imavov just beat Chris Curtis, or rather, no contest Chris Curtis, you should say. It would look like he was going to win. I don't know. Maybe they're rebooking that fight. We're going to have to see what the UFC decides, because unfortunately that fight ended in a no contest. So maybe it is Allen and Dolidze next, especially that he got it done in the first round. I could see them turning Allen around by fall for sure. Sick win for Brendan Allen. Finally gets past that striking test. To finish out the prelims, Neil Magny and Phil Rowe fought to a really close decision. I slightly favored Phil Rowe at the end of it. I thought he did a little bit more damage, but it's not one of those decisions I can get completely up in arms about, because at the end of the day, it's not like there was significant damage by Phil Rowe, and it's not like he didn't give up some control time to Neil Magny. But I do think you could slightly score it towards the side of Phil Rowe, first and third round, but you could also argue first, second, and third round. When Buffer was announcing the split and he made a little fumble, I knew it was for Magny, because he switched this other card. The reason being is he announced first Magny one-on-one judge, then he can't announce the other. Why? Because it's Magny winning. Then if he wins two, he guaranteed wins the split decision regardless of what the third judge thinks. So I kind of knew there that Magny had won it. Phil Rowe takes a disappointing L, but ultimately he looks solid, and he gave Neil Magny a really difficult fight because of his frame. I do think he could have got the split decision. I picked Phil Rowe to win, but I also, on the decision, thought he got it by a nudge. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. For Neil Magny, I mean, he's a top 15 guy at welterweight, but really had a lot of trouble in this fight. And against Max Griffin had a lot of trouble, another unranked guy at welterweight. I don't know what they're going to do with him, man. He's in one of those weird spots where he's beating the outside ranked guys, but just barely. But then, maybe he goes and turns it around and wins by submission against someone that's actually in the top 15. Just Phil Rowe, I always felt was a tough stylistic matchup. I don't know the specific opponent for Neil Magny next. He's 35 years of age. He's making great money doing this, and he's taking minimal damage. For Phil Rowe, he's going to be set back a bit. He's in a tough spot to ever be a top 15 contender after this one, to be honest. Losing as close as it was, losing that split, it's one of those devastating L's. Ultimately, though, still good performance by Rowe, and Magny always game. Fight before that, Randy Brown actually faced some adversity against Wellington Turman in that third round. He was getting ripped with nasty elbows. He got his nose absolutely destroyed. Brown's boxing from range, his kickboxing is decent. He's fairly strong inside of the clinch. But Wellington Turman was nasty late, and those elbows were significant. The most damaging shots of the whole fight were Wellington Turman's elbows. Obviously, he was scoring fights round to round, but I was worried that the first and second were close enough that potentially Wellington Turman could have got a decision. Ultimately, Randy Brown, I do think, was the rightful winner. I had first and second Brown, third round Turman, so I'm not going to get up in arms about that one. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually grateful that Randy Brown pulled it off. But Turman gave him way more trouble than I think majority of people anticipated. I knew Turman was decent, but I thought Randy Brown should be able to just outwork him and have a serious speed edge. I guess, is it saying a lot for Turman? Oh, he's better than we thought? Or is it, damn, Brown is not as good as we thought? So, up to you guys on that one. You got to decide. Your eyes probably tell you the answer. What I'm thinking, maybe Randy Brown is not as good as anticipated. We kind of fall into a little bit of hype with him after, 4 sick wins in a row. Still, not the top caliber. Wellington Turman drops to 170. I still think long-term it's a better career move, but Randy Brown, clear win. Turman takes the debut at 170L. Mateusz Rębecki versus Loik Radzhabov. Holy shit, Rębecki looked incredible. He beat the shit out of Loik Radzhabov. Ended up dropping him with a big punch, finishing him off, was ripping his legs apart, taking him down, beating him up. The OV's been taking L's lately, and Radzhabov was no exception to that. Former PFL finalist got dog-walked by Rębecki. Rębecki looked like a monster, 18-1. After the Nick Fury fight, I was less impressed, but then here I said, holy shit. All right, Rębecki. Like, he's in his flow now. I think he's a dangerous guy at 155. Some unranked opposition next, but he's someone they can build properly. Unless they want to throw Chase Hooper to him, and, you can match those two off. I feel like Rębecki would beat him up. I feel like Rębecki would hurt him bad. Loik, rough spot after this loss. He missed weight, and he put up a pretty bad performance. I think they'll keep him around, but he's not on the UFC's green side, I'll say. Before that, Tabatha, Ricci, and Gillian Robertson. Ricci was just way quicker. Robertson could do no damage on the ground, and Ricci ended up out-wrestling her too. Yeah, clean win for Tabatha Ricci. Her movement was really good. She's got great reflexes, super quick, nasty jiu-jitsu as we already knew, good takedown, solid base. Gillian Robertson really doesn't throw any thud into her punches, which is ultimately her biggest deficit in her whole game, is she's not heavy-handed, but nor does she really seem to throw heavy. She seems more striking to grapple. Tabatha Ricci, regardless of her ground skill set, throws hard shots. And when she touches you, you'll feel it. It's not like, Robertson was rocked or anything like that, but still getting hit, getting punched in the face. Tabatha Ricci did it better. She won the fight clearly. Tabatha Ricci for the win. It was a clean decision. And she's pretty good at 28. I mean, beating Gillian Robertson with Robertson kind of on fire, 2 in a row, and the submission winning grappling, Rose, there was a lot of hype on her. Takes a tough one here, man. Ricci, she's game. She's legit. Before that, Joshua Van defeated Zhumagulov, and I'll expect to hear Zhumagulov is taking the walking papers at nearly 35 years of age. His UFC career really hasn't panned out as maybe he would have hoped. Joshua Van is only 21 and outstruck the fuck out of him while stopping all of his takedowns. Zhumagulov just doesn't have enough pop in his hands. Joshua Van was way more crisp with his striking. He found beautiful shots, and I mean, he's originally from Myanmar, so we know they are the home of Lethwei, so you expect good-ass Muay Thai skill set, good Lethwei skill, but it's Muay Thai. It's Muay Thai style striking, and it's very dangerous that he's evolved it to MMA extraordinarily well. Obviously, Texas guy, so he's American now, but monstrous performance. I mean, the way he picked Zhumagulov apart at only 21, it was a deserving win. I don't think Zhumagulov had any shot after the 3 rounds. It was like I knew for a fact Joshua Van was winning. The way that he beat him was more impressive than a Charles Johnson or a Jeff Molina. So that shows you at 21, if I'm at flyweight, I'm keeping my eye peeled at Joshua Van. And, as someone that breaks down the fights, I am going to be keeping my eye on Joshua Van too, because I feel like he's going to get slept on again. And I think he's going to continue to get better and deliver. Like, I just think the way he mixes his strikes together and he beat up Zhumagulov at just 21, I can't imagine him in 2 years. 3 years, especially if he gets the right matchups by the UFC. He's someone that could be very good. Great performance. Joshua Van, welcome to the octagon. Zhumagulov, it might be goodbye. Before that, Chepe Mariscal beat up Trevor Peek and exposed Trevor Peek's lack of technical skill. Trevor Peek is a junkyard dog, iron chin, super entertaining, throws power in every single punch, but one thing he lacks is the pure technique. Even in the jiu-jitsu positions, he's making kind of, novice mistakes. He's like pulling Chepe on top of him to try and get the crucifix position, not locking his hooks when he, has Chepe's back position. His great athleticism and just grit to win can keep him in fights, but Chepe Mariscal was just way too veteran savvy and styled on him. Hurt him with punches, out-wrestled him, and cleanly beat him. Respect to Mariscal pulling this one off on short notice. Up a weight class, too, finally in the UFC. Delivers on his dream. Congrats to Chepe Mariscal, dude. That shit was impressive. For Trevor Peek, though, you know he's going to be around. He's making $50K for Fight of the Night. He's one of the most entertaining guys on the roster, and I think everybody wants to watch a Trevor Peek fight. I want to watch him slugfest. We'll watch him every fucking card. Regardless of the result, his chin is crazy. His power is still insane. There's small things to tune up. He's 28. He's 28. There's time for Trevor Peek to get a little bit better, and his insane will to win and crazy style is going to carry him far in the UFC, because an entertaining guy like that, you don't want to let go. If the UFC ended up letting go of him, he'll get picked up elsewhere for sure, because that's a style that's so fan-friendly. Promotions love to have that on the card. Even if it's bare-knuckle boxing, BKFC calls him up. They definitely give him big fights. He's super entertaining. So Trevor Peek has established himself as a guy, I think, that's got some job security here, as long as he can get a win in his next 3 fights. If he loses another one, he's in trouble. Then if he loses one more, maybe he gets released. But if he can just beat some of these back-end guys, keep improving, I like Trevor Peek a lot. Chepe Mariscal, I'm excited to see him at 145 and see how he looks with a full camp, because I was pretty impressed with him up a weight with a full camp, but I want to see him when he fights a technician too. Things are going to change. That's going to be interesting. I look forward to it. Good win, Chepe. Before that, Jamal Emmers, Jack Jenkins. I scored this fight for Jamal Emmers. I actually think the judges definitely got this one wrong. Jack Jenkins was a live dog. I said it all week. He was tough. He ripped some beautiful calf kicks. He was in the fight with strikes, but Jamal Emmers still had great moments, landed good punches, some takedowns for him too. I thought Jamal edged it out. I thought Jamal should have got a split. Now, did I go back and rewatch it? No. But from what I saw live, sitting here with the live chat all watching, I thought Jamal Emmers got the decision. I thought that he deserved it at the end of it. I thought he landed a little bit better punches, was definitely mixing it up. They don't give it to him. It's better for the UFC. Why? Because Jack Jenkins has way more upside potential. Now, I'm not saying they're robbing Jamal Emmers because the UFC is just trying to build Jack Jenkins, but it worked out in their favor this time. A prospect like Jack Jenkins moves forward with a semi-controversial decision. I'm not going to go up and down and say robbery, but I had Jamal Emmers winning the fight after it, 2-1. It is what it is. Jamal Emmers, tough out. Pretty boy Emmers takes a fat L. Jack Jenkins remains unbeaten in the UFC, and now he's jumping up in competition after beating Jamal, regardless of who I thought won. First fight of the night, it started off with Cedriquez Dumas and Cody Brundage, and I would say one of the worst efforts I've ever seen. Cody Brundage had a very subpar performance. I am going to rack it up to the fact he took this fight on short notice when maybe he wasn't in the proper shape, because he didn't seem to be putting it on the gas pedal at all. He seemed very frustrated. Maybe he's having thoughts like, fuck, I took this fight on short notice. Fuck, I feel like shit. Fuck this. I don't want to do it. Fuck this. He didn't seem mentally there. Dumas was out grappling him, and Brundage is a quality wrestler. He's strong on top, and he keeps shooting guillotines, man. Shooting guillotines in 2023 in the UFC is not an optimal style. Unless you're John Jones, I don't even want to see guillotines out of you. He shot on Dumas like 2 or 3 times and ends up on his back every fucking time. Early especially, he almost had full mount. He could have TKO'd Dumas there. That shifted the whole fight because Dumas then had the whole round on top. And it seemed like Brundage's mental totally collapsed. Dumas also, let's give credit where it's due. Better takedown defense, better stamina, more jacked, 100% put on muscle. He looks strong, and he beat up Cody Brundage. So take nothing away from Dumas, because he's somebody who's on the come up right now with good length, solid kickboxing, a fun style, maybe a Jamie Pickett matchup in the future. Maybe a Ugly Man Joe matchup in the future. I don't know. There's some fights for him. For Brundage, I believe because he took this fight on short notice, job security shouldn't be affected. But damn, he's going to be on the fucking chopping block heading into his next fight. Dumas, very good win. Proud of him. He showed improvement since the Froome fight for sure. Now, card, pretty solid. As far as the picks, my most disappointing night of all time. It's part of the game, though. Finished with a very iffy, 3-9-1 record. We won with Topuria on the main event. We lost with Ribas in the co-main. No contest with Tafa, who was the lock, so that sucked. We lost with Santos over Onama. Knew it was a dogfight, but damn, Santos got slept. Won with Brendan Allen over Bruno Silva. Lost with Phil Rowe over Neil Magny. Regardless, I did think, Phil Rowe got that decision. Won with Randy Brown over Wellington Turman. Lost with Loik Radzhabov against Rębecki. Lost with Gillian Robertson against Ricci. Dumb pick on my end. Believing too much in the camp. Lost with Zhumagulov on Van. 21 years old, pulled it off. Damn, super impressive. I couldn't have been overly upset with Joshua Van, man. Pick flip, the dumbest pick. I got to limit these pick flips, man. Fuck the pick flips post weigh-in. I flipped from Mariscal to Peak because I'm like, oh, Peak's, he's got this look at weigh-ins. Fuck that. Stupid. Bad call on my part. The better martial artist, I told it on Sunday when I did the full card picks, is Chepe, and he wins the fight. So lost on that one because I flipped to Peak. And then Jamal Emmers took an L, controversial decision with Jack Jenkins. And then with Brundage, he didn't even show up. I had him over Dumas. So yeah, let's see. What's it? 1, 2. Let's double check. I'm counting right here, guys. Yup. 3, 9, and 1 no contest? Holy shit. Or 3, 8, and 1 no contest? That's fucking... Is it 3, 8, and 1 no contest? I gotta check again. Loss in this one. That's 1 loss, 2 loss, 3 loss, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. With what? Wins? With Brown, 1 win. Allen, 2 win. Topuria, 3 win. So 3, 9, 1 no contest. Yeah. Damn, son. Damn. 3, 9, and 1 no contest. Worst record ever. I got to turn that shit around. I'm disappointed as fuck in that. Ultimately, though, I know it's part of the game. Sometimes shit goes completely fucking sideways. I had a great time covering the fights all week, and I still had a great time watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this week's worth of content. Much love to everybody watching as it is Strike the Mic. Make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Drop in the full card picks tomorrow for UFC Vegas 76, and I'm fucking turning it up, bro. We're coming with a vengeance. People say, oh, bro, you said it last week. No. I'm coming with a fucking vengeance, baby. Listen, I'm putting it on the line out there, and you guys know, ride with it, win, lose, or draw. I'm always coming head first, and let's get it next week. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate everybody. If you got nothing to say in the comments, as always, drop a W in the chat. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, everybody.